Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Stephen King's It, starring Richard Mazur, Dennis Christopher, John Ritter, Tim Curry, Tim Reed, Annette O'Toole, and Harry Anderson, and directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. Now, there is something I do remember about this movie before going into this series. First of all, I remember that opening scene with the little girl meeting the Pennywise the clown for the first time, and that scarred me for life as a kid. But did it still remain scary to this day? Let's find out, shall we? The scene I remember when Lori Ann meets Pennywise, played by Tim Curry, and he just kills her off, was not only very scary, but I remember that scene quite well as a kid, scarring me to death, and remembered it to this day, as I said earlier in the show. We also see a grown-up Michael Hanlon, who we'll see joining the Losers Club later in the film. And then we move on to a horror writer, Bill as an adult, and Michael was an adult by the time we got to that second scene, who lost his little brother Georgie, which I'll talk about in a minute or two. But there's some back and forth between Bill and Michael and the other Losers Club, I think we'll call them, which they hear about Pennywise as kids, and them as adults trying to stop Pennywise for good. And when I first saw it, I was confused on what was going on in the movie. Georgie meeting Pennywise was a brief scene, but if I were Georgie, I would run the fuck away. I mean, from the sewers, because a clown in the sewers, first of all, would be pretty suspicious to me. I'm sure back in the 1990s, Tim Curry was be a scary Pennywise, the dancing clown back in the day. But now, unfortunately, he's not that scary today. And we'll see how Bill Skarsgård does as Pennywise this coming weekend, or as I'll review it next week. But now I'm not sure if I'm scared of Pennywise at this point. Ben Hanscom as an adult is more built skinny than him as a kid, which was what a transformation, and I'm impressed by the actor, and it is a good performance by John Ritter. But as a kid, he was pretty bad in this whole acting thing in my mind. The actor who plays Henry Bowers does a pretty good job at this whole bullying thing, because he's a complete asshole to everyone and carries a knife with him, which is so fucking dangerous, by the way, folks, and like he's a complete idiot. Beverly Marsh as a kid was a sweet little girl, but as an adult, played by Annette O'Toole, is kind of a waste of an actress for playing that character. But by the end of the day, and I don't believe I've seen Annette O'Toole after this movie, because she's a pretty bad actress in my opinion. Ben seeing Pennywise for the first time as a kid, and the next thing I know, there's a skeleton in the river, is not really that scary either. Beverly as an adult has this asshole of a boss named Tom Groven. Then the next thing you know, they're sleeping together. Like, you've got to be shitting me. And the way Tom slaps her and acts all abusive to her, like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, he's fucking abusive. Her father is just as abusive. Like, fucking really? Eddie has the asthma, which we saw earlier in the film, and him I liked in the movie. Another one who I liked in this young kid sequence, and I liked him as well as Seth Green from before Austin Powers, let me say, as Richie in this movie. That's 4 out of 6 of the Losers Club I like so far. Eddie, Richie, Michael, and Bill. Stan I'm pretty sure I like at this point, because he's a Boy Scout and has a good time with them as well as... So that's 5 out of 7 at this point. A balloon full of blood in the sink looks really bad for that effect in those days. For blood effects, like, ugh. Pennywise isn't as scary as I remembered, especially in the photos I've seen. The Losers Club are at the movies watching a monster movie Like, are those kids dumb enough to watch a horror/monster movie? Like, really? They're pretty stupid, but they're pretty stupid because I like how they accidentally drop the popcorn, but Richie accidentally spills the soda. Well, actually does it for real on purpose, by the way, on Henry Bowers, and I thought that was pretty funny. The shower scene with Eddie and Pennywise shows up at the school's gym showers. Like, that is very uncomforting. To see a clown in the showers while you're naked, like, I was already uncomfortable at this point. Richie is a comedian as an adult, and to be honest, I liked him better as a kid being played by Seth Green because he's so fucking great. Like, I love his acting in Austin Powers and such. But that's another time that I gotta discuss that movie. I love when Richie has an accident with the school principal and he tries to get a mop and Mr. Marsh, and he says he's drunk as a skunk. That made me laugh. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna put it there. When he goes down to Mr. Marsh's office, that got me to laugh. I mean, that was pretty funny. Michael, as a kid, we get introduced to finally, and he's a history buff, and Henry Bowers picks on him and calls him things that are disrespectful for an African American these days. And one of them is boy, and the other one is the N-word, which I'm not going to say because that's too much for me. And Michael gets his history stuff and runs, and Bowers chases him, and Michael runs to the Losers Club and joins them, throwing rocks at Bowers, which was pretty awesome for this movie. And Michael joins the Losers Club at this point. I was really glad about that, by the way. Stan, as an adult, tries to make love to his wife when he gets a call from Mike about Pennywise, as an adult, by the way, about Pennywise being back, and is not really the best adult character in my opinion, but luckily he dies by the end of his scene with his wife. Beverly is really good with the slingshot and was actually convincing because she's a kid, and some kids are really good with the slingshot. So I was impressed with that skill. Even as an adult, she was too good with the slingshot. Pennywise getting defeated but doesn't die. Like, there's just no way he's dead. Because earlier, when they were adults, they say it's come back. And they refer to Pennywise, and because it's not a man, but I'll talk about that at the end of the movie, Stan's dead because it was back and is kind of a lame reason for someone to commit suicide. Like, it's baffling to me, in my opinion. Audra, who is a wife of Bill, and she wants to see what all the fuss is about in Maine with Pennywise, and she gets herself captured at the end of the movie by Pennywise at the hotel. And Bill tries to show her how to ride a bike in the final moments in the movie. Like, this is really bad with strange presence of a menacing clown. I like when the Losers Club meet up at the Chinese restaurant. That was a good, quiet moment from Pennywise. I mean, seriously, I did like that. Henry Bowers, as an adult and in a mental hospital, sees Pennywise, and Pennywise asks of him to kill the Losers Club. And Pennywise on the moon really looked bad. When the Losers Club are at the Chinese restaurant, and blood and an eyeball and a little baby bird that is dead that actually looks disgusting, because in their fortune cookies, something sweet at a Chinese restaurant that has those dead and eyeball things, was just too disheartening for the movie in my mind to do that for a Chinese restaurant. Well, of course it was a fake out, sure, but it's still pretty bad. This whole movie is very strange. I watched this twice, I have to confess, and never could get through the whole 3 hours because it's just a fucking strange movie. I'll talk about that at the end. Stan's head in the refrigerator in the library is not only disgusting, but is horribly affected. Scene, the whole Pennywise comes and kills people every 30 years doesn't make any fucking sense, to a point when my head was starting to hurt until death. Henry Bowers trying to kill Michael, but Bill and Ben comes to his rescue, and Michael is hospitalized, but don't worry, he lives at the end. And Henry Bowers dies like, is like he never grew the fuck up, really? And also, he dies like, are you fucking kidding me? Just horrible. The final fight between the losers and Pennywise turns into a spider, was probably the worst fight ever, and Pennywise as a spider was very gross. Like, goddamn, this is total TV cliche in my mind. Now it's time for the rating. I'll give the movie a 4.7 out of 10. The first half I was liking more than the second half, and it was at a point where it was dragging. And the acting is absolutely horrible. And this is, as a scary movie, is not that scary. And I'm nervous to go into the movie theater for the new movie for a few reasons, which I'll get to next week. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for Stephen King's It. And I will be back next week with the reboot. And until next time, it's Pennywise!